Yeah. All right, I'm going to kick this off, Rod. When did you start jiu-jitsu, man?
2012.
When
2011
yeah.
and started 2012 was when I realized I was going to do it. Yeah.
Where'd you start?
Full-time. Where?
Yeah.
Peter DeBean Jiu-Jitsu in Hoppers Crossing.
Oh, nice. Who was the coach there?
Chris Dirksen.
Oh, he was there, yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was the first instructor. And, just sort of like, I came across it in a weird way, Like, I was looking for gyms in the local area and just happened to be down in Hoppers Crossing industrial area with Sean at the time, and sort of said, hang on, I just want to drive around this industrial area and just see if I can see any gyms in the area. And just saw this little Gracie Borough sign on the top of a warehouse, and Sean's just like, I think they do jiu-jitsu in there. And then I'm like, true. So then I looked up the number and then went on the website and just saw that they were training on, I think the next training was like, at that point it was like a Saturday or something like that. And I went down there and just that was it. Just walked in the gym and there's little Dirksen just sitting there, and he's just like, gives me that 3-hour speech basically, like about how jiu-jitsu is amazing and, how great it is. And I'd already convinced myself I was going to start anyway, but it was just, it was good to see that guy was like super passionate about the sport. And I was like, this is where I want to be, like, because the guy loves the sport, and I want to be around people that love the sport because I'm really into it. So it was just, it was a really good place to start.
Do you remember your first lesson? Like that first time when you're on the mat and you're like, what the hell, man? What are these guys doing?
I told the story to Andy the other day. I'd studied jiu-jitsu. I'm sure I've told you this, but I studied jiu-jitsu like about 2 years before I went into my first class. Yeah, like I was watching it on YouTube, like relentlessly on weekends and stuff like that. I'd just sit in my room playing games, and then I'd have YouTube just running on in the corner. Then I'd sit down and just watch stuff over and over and over again because I'm just like, I want to get involved in this sport, but I just never took that plunge into actually going to a gym. And it was just funny because I went there with this like idea in my head. I knew exactly what I was going to do. Like I had been watching this stuff. I reckon I'd figured out a cerebral game plan in my head and everything. And then it's like I turn up and he puts me with Roz, this little girl, and she was blue belt at the time. And I just was just like, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. And
mess this girl up, man. She doesn't know me.
Yeah, exactly. And the funny thing is like I'm thinking I'm bringing in the most technical stuff they've ever seen, because I was like such an Eddie Bravo guy at that time that I was like, I'm going to come in and I'm going to like side control, twister, like berimbolo roll to like back take and stuff. And and it's funny because I think like she's blue belt. So she just sort of went, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. And then within like 2 seconds, I'd passed her guard and then was like reverse side control on it. And then she's like done what you would do. Technically, it's like turning to your opponent. And so she's like got up on her side. And when she did that, I'd gone through my head, this is exactly how this is going to happen. And then she gave me the leg that I wanted. So then I hooked the leg for the like twister and then rolled through. Next minute I was on her back and I'm just like, I'm God, like this is exactly how I pictured this going, But then within 2 seconds, she just like turned and faced me. And then I just got bashed for like the next 5 minutes. It all just fell apart. And that was, it was that point then I realized I'm like, like I've got to get into this. Like as much as I think I know, like this is so legit. Like she just like, lack of a better word, just destroyed me. And, I didn't know anything. And she mounted me, armbarred me, took my back, choked me, and for 5 minutes. And I was just like, this is sick. Like this is why I came here. This is what I want to do. Right. Yeah. It was awesome. So that was my first experience.
Good times with Roz, eh? Was Jamie there when you started?
Jamie?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that was when he was like in and out. For the first like 2 years of me being at Dirksen's, it was sort of like he was there maybe like once a week or something like that. So we didn't really like know of each other too much during that period of time, because I was turning up every class, every time, catching up. And he'd sort of gone off and was doing other things for a while, and with a couple of mates, and then they would just pop in and have a train every now and again. So he was sort of like, who's that guy? But we didn't really like know each other well at that stage. It wasn't until me closely getting my blue belt that he then started turning up a lot, and then was just sort of like, who the fuck are you? And yeah, and then that was it. And then we just became training partners, obviously, at that point. And then it's just been that like ever since. So
Tell me about your first comp.
The
famous long champ.
Yeah, that's right. I hated every second of it. Like I just hated it, because I'm not a competitor. So I sort of went because Dirksen sort of, it's not like he forced you, but he just sort of, saying that you got to do it. So
that was the way back
I went
then.
down. Yeah, I went down and I gave it a go, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do. It's not why I do jiu-jitsu. And I felt like it just really, it put me off for sure. Like, it just didn't enjoy the whole experience. So I learned then the difference between someone that wants to do it for a hobby and then someone who wants to do it to be a competitor, and why you start jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? If you want to be that guy that wants to test yourself and all that, then great, you're going to be a competitor and you're going to enjoy it and get something from it, then great. But I'm more the hobbyist, so I think that that's not why I do the sport. So definitely did enjoy that experience, but it was all right. Like, it was good to go and roll people that I wasn't used to rolling, in the style that I wasn't used to rolling. And what that did was it made me make the decision that in order to grow, that I would have to visit other gyms at some point and
blasphemy
myself. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I did with Jamie. Instead of competing, we would go to other gyms and just test ourselves against the other gyms, and and it was good. So,
which was a big no-no back then, right? That was a big no-no in those days.
Oh yeah, like it was especially Dirksen, like it's like he didn't like that we were doing it, but he liked it when we came back and told him that we did well. So it's sort of like, he wants to hear that you're going around and bashing other gyms and that you're representing him well, but at the same time he doesn't like that you're going to other gyms, because I guess it's that, like any martial art gym, especially a small one, the fear of that you're going to go somewhere else, right? So but I mean, just like I've learned through other guys that own gyms over the years, it's just sort of like you got to let people be where they want to be and where it's best for them. And I think we've both found that over the years of our journeys, that you just sort of got to go where it's good for you, and and where you're getting what you need, and surrounded by the people you want to be surrounded by. So.
Yeah, I mean, we've come such full circle. We constantly tell people to go to other gyms now. We're like, man, you got to go train here, go meet this guy, go have a train here. Whereas, like, man, when I was a blue belt, you weren't even allowed to have friends from other gyms. Like you'd get tagged in a photo on Facebook and you'd be like, oh shit, man, can you delete that photo? I don't want the coach to see it. I'll get in big trouble. Like, that's how it was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you'd sort of get shunned out of the gym a bit, like all the guys that get shitty at you, that you've gone to another gym, and because it's just, I think it's because jiu-jitsu, you have such strong connections with your training partner, your everyday training partners in your gym, and you're quite loyal to that. And I think that the connections that you have with those people, that they sort of, they just see it as like, just a bad thing. They don't want to see that you're going and doing it with anybody else. It's like a tribal thing, right? Where it's like, this is our tribe. Don't go to other tribes. And and once you get past that, it's very freeing. And I learned that from, some guys that I was close with coming up that had a different view on that, and was basically just, they weren't the competitors, and they just loved the sport, and they just wanted to experience it, the sport from multiple people and learn as much as they could. And in order to do that, they had to spread their wings and go to other gyms and stuff, because not one person knows everything, right? And the more that you do it, the more you learn that, right? So, it's just sort of, it was a bit like that. So,
yeah, I remember that was one of my biggest things, was like, if I ever opened a gym, that was like something that I would be really like promoting, because I used to hate that. I thought it was so ridiculous. I remember like a friend of ours, Dustin Brown, Like I was talking to him one day. I was like, "Do you still train with Kit?" And he's like, "Yeah, but don't tell anyone, man. Like, no one's meant to
Yeah.
know because he's on a different team." That's like, I didn't
And it's
understand.
so
I was like, "What do you
stupid.
mean? He's your friend. Like, why wouldn't you just go train with him?" Oh, no, no, you
Exactly.
can't do that, man. I was like, "What?" I was so
Yeah. It's
confused.
so stupid.
Yeah,
Yeah, it makes no sense, you know. And all it does is it restricts your ability to learn, you know.
yeah,
And if anyone trying to restrict your ability to learn the sport isn't good for you, right? You know, it's not right. You know,
yeah.
everyone's got their own path and everyone wants to learn it, and you know, you just got to allow people to find the information they need, and it may not be from you. And I think that, like again, that you know, the more that you do it, the more you start to realize that you know, you may not have the information that's best for everyone. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, there's the right gym for each person, you know. And if you look
Exactly.
at like we're a good example, like your AET headquarters is a kilometer down the road. You couldn't get two more opposite gyms than us and them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't look at that and go, "Oh man, that's a competitor gym." I go, "No, man,
Mhm.
they basically do something completely different to we do."
Exactly.
You know, you
Yeah.
got to find that right fit, the people, the coaching style, the atmosphere is
Yeah.
a big one.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And that will be good for some people that do it for that reason, you know,
yeah,
like we all talk about with Dean's Gym and Vermello and that. And it's sort of like that gym sort of is set for those people that want to be the competitor, that want to win everything, that just
one
want that
injuries.
style of jiu-jitsu. And that's why you find the gym that gives you that product, you know. Yeah, and you can't be like unhappy if somebody's trying to find the gym for them, you know.
No,
And it's a learning experience for I think yourself, like any gym owner, is learning to be able to understand that, you know, nowadays more than ever, because back in the day, like you said, we just weren't given that option. It was no, you chose me, and now you're with me, and that's how it is. And it's just like, you know, yeah.
to give you guys an example, the Brazilians are so crazy about this. They invented a word just for a person who changes jiu-jitsu teams. So there is a word, and all it is it's the person that changes jiu-jitsu teams. The word is creont, and it roughly translates as traitor. But the only use of it in the Portuguese language is for a person that does jiu-jitsu and they change teams. He's a creont. It's like a really like a diss, like a bad thing to be called. So they invented a word for that. That's how stupid they are about it. But anyway, Rodney, you mentioned Eddie Bravo. Who were some of your early like influences in the way you did jiu-jitsu, apart from like Dirksen, your coach? Like, you know, like when we started, there wasn't a ton of YouTube. You had to like order books from overseas, or I remember ordering DVDs from like the Abu Dhabi 2009. Like it happened, and then a year later or 6 months later, you could order the DVDs of the actual tournament. And then I've got like a DVD pack of 400 matches that you would go through on DVD. So who were some of your influences like outside of your actual coach?
Well, at the start, like obviously Eddie Bravo was the guy that I lent towards, but then when I got into the sport and I started realizing how his stuff wasn't as applicable to the traditional jiu-jitsu, I had to come to realize that you weren't going to twist the people. It wasn't going to happen. So I had to sort of let go of that and then look for at the time a legitimate jiu-jitsu guy to sort of look upon. And for me, I found at that time I was still weighing like 60 kilos, and I found a small technical guy, Karatera, and yeah, I basically just started watching his stuff, because at that time he was like the rooster weight that was doing all the technical stuff, the new school jiu-jitsu, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do the new school jiu-jitsu. I wasn't really watching the sort of old school guys with the old school traditional jiu-jitsu, because they, you know, Dirksen would like say names of people and stuff like that, but I wasn't interested in their styles, like the old school stuff. I was interested in the new school stuff, and that's who was doing it at the time. I mean, that was one of the guys at the time that was getting talked about as Karatera. He was on a tear. He was, you know, winning all the worlds and stuff like that. And then when I watched some of his footage, I was like, that guy is technical as hell. And that's, again, why I started the sport, because I wanted to be as, you know, technical in the sport as I could possibly be. So I saw that in him, and then I just basically just started following his career and his style and just sort of trying to basically implement what I was seeing from him into my jiu-jitsu on the mat, which was great for a while until I hit 60, until I hit about 75 kilos, and all of a sudden I stopped converting, and I started realizing that that was no longer applicable anymore, and then I had to find new people to follow, which is sort of the path that I'm on now. Is sort of I've modeled different people to get to where I am now and what I look at. Yeah
Nice. So who do you think you're looking at? I know you said, we talked at another time and you said Bernardo Faria was a big part for you, his style. Who else do you think?
Lucas Lepre.
With your half guard stuff.
Uchecha, and this is more of the, like I said, when I started to want to do more of an aggressive, stronger jiu-jitsu, as I was getting up, towards, like when I was going through the brown stage, I was trying to become like able to be more imposing with my jiu-jitsu, because I think up until purple, I was trying to do that laid back, relaxed style. And at some point, I just wasn't really pulling the trigger to be more aggressive and controlling. And then once I sort of started to look for that influence, I found it in the higher weight guys, because they're just definitely more get at you, strong jiu-jitsu. But then there's some smaller guys like Lucas Lepre isn't a big guy.
No, he's probably
his jiu-jitsu is fucking, it's ferocious. It's just hardcore. It's just in your face, hard jiu-jitsu. So I sort of wanted to adapt that style in the later parts of the jiu-jitsu journey, because you need the both. You need that technical small man game, and then you need that strong, harder game, because you need to be ready for anything at the end of the day. You don't know what's going to be needed for the guy that you're going to roll. I mean, we always got to find the weakness in where they're weak, and that's what I looked for.
Yeah. How do you think so you started in, like, what do you say, 2011? So 2011 to now, pretty big changes in terms of the way jiu-jitsu is I say taught, but just like the variety of techniques around today is a lot more than it was like when we started. Like I started in 2008. So tell me a bit about how you think the sport's changed in terms of like the volume of techniques. And then like I think about a good solid blue belt today, the amount of stuff they know compared to like when I was a blue belt is crazy, right?
Ridiculous. Yeah, it's changed so much because of the access to content, right? I mean, that just immediately skyrocketed the the ability of what could be achieved in the time that you were doing, because normally back in the day, it was like 2 years on each belt. And the reason being is because it took you that long to sort of acquire the knowledge and the abilities and stuff like that during that period of time through training and limited access to the knowledge and stuff like that, because you had to get it through your teacher or through some other guy that did it. And, nowadays it's just like, because you access to the knowledge, that there's no limit to how fast you can learn to apply that. It really just comes down to now, how often are you training? How regular are you training? So you can streamline your progress just so fast nowadays. So what's expected from the belts nowadays, what people can achieve in the belt is more like it. What people are going to achieve in their belt now is superior to what we ever saw back in the day from when we were coming up. But it's what's still needed for those belts, I don't think has ever really changed. I think that's still always something that will stay strong. I mean, that's just like fundamentals in jiu-jitsu. They'll always stay strong. But everything else has evolved about it. So, with the technology and everything. So, but I think we got it good because we sort of got, like for me, I got the arse end of it. Like I really got the very end of the traditional style jiu-jitsu, and then it just started to take off with the new school guys. And it's like, it was such a good time to sort of be in jiu-jitsu, because you sort of were given the fundamental base, and then you could then just move with the times and progress with what was happening with all the new guards and all the new technical stuff. And yeah, and it's just been amazing to sort of watch that sport develop and be a part of it too, because I was developing and growing whilst it was developing and growing. Which I don't know if it's really doing any much more now. I mean, you see things coming in, but it's not like it was at that point in time. I mean, there was whole new guard systems getting created during the period of time when we were sort of evolving with it. Which sort of changed everything. Where nowadays it's sort of more, I think things that are changing is people are using it more as a game or something like that. Like, well, I'm just more of this game now and more of that game now, and they're becoming very specialized in it, as opposed to creating something new,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I think content's the big one, right? Like when I started jiu-jitsu, it was pretty obscure still. Like there was probably maybe half a dozen black belts in the country. Like I started there was a black belt in Cairns, which was super weird because Cairns is like a little hick town. But I remember like you would travel to Melbourne and there was like Pete DeBean, John Will, and John Donahue. That was like the three big ones. And I think maybe Elvis Sinisic in Sydney had a black belt. There's a few guys here and there, but it was like a blue belt was like a god. Like when I started, it was like, holy shit, that guy's got a colored belt, And now it's like, blue belt, whatever. Such a difference, There's so many more now.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy. Yeah. You guys got any questions for Rodney? Sarah, you got a question for Rodney?
Yes, I do have a question for Rodney. I wanted to know, in your opinion, what was the most challenging belt for you, or if they all came with their own separate challenges, and were they different, I guess?
Definitely, yeah. Every belt comes with its challenges because it's a different developing part in your journey. So you're always faced with a different challenge each belt, but I think the hardest one would have been purple, to be honest, in a way. It's sort of like, because when you get to purple, you now got to start to, being considered as a high level, you got to start to create your own game and be able to sort of be more independent and, find your own path. And, you're definitely on your own journey at that point. And, And at that point too, people are starting to, look to you for knowledge and things like that. So you sort of learn a lot at purple belt. It is definitely a defining belt. I think the other, then after that, like say for instance, brown is just like just sharpening your tools and then heading, so that you can head towards black and so on. And then white is just learning jiu-jitsu so that you can become a blue. And then getting blue is just about learning all the moves that you want to understand so that you can take it to purple to then create the game. So they're all different and whatever, but I think the most challenging one would have been purple for sure for me. But that was just my journey. So other people may have different opinions on that. Yeah.
Are you finding it challenging, Sarah?
When we get to train,
yeah,
I feel like I haven't had much time on the mat as a purple belt, to be honest. But
it's hard.
Yeah, I reckon there's different types of pressure. So I agree with what Hodge is saying.
Yeah, I think purple belt is a tough one for people because, like Hodge said, it's like by the time you get to your purple belt, you've got a pretty big pool of techniques that you can pull from now, right? And so purple belt is really the belt where you decide what your game is going to be. That's what I think. And then like what he said, brown belt, by the time you get your brown belt, you're still always going to learn and add new stuff, but you have an A game, and brown belt, you're going to master that game. So purple belt's about working out what your A game is for now, because it's going to change, right? Like my A game today is probably the same as it was when I was a blue belt, but you're going to add stuff. So you'll have multiple A games. But yeah, purple belt's a hard one because there is some, you don't need a lot of new techniques as a purple belt. Like, here, do this. Here's a new way to do that. It's more like it's you got to brush up still. Adjust your arm, do this, make things a bit better. But it's like, let's master these 20 things that you've already got. let's not add too much. Let's just master what you've got and then smash it out for a couple of years. So I think that is hard because you're like, shouldn't I be learning more stuff? But no, it's like, let's master what you got. And I think that's frustrating for people.
Well, because I feel like you do that at blue belt, right? I mean, any blue belt, you know, and I did the same, is when you get to blue belt, you look at you're just acquiring moves, you know, at blue belt, because you understand jiu-jitsu and you're sort of going, oh, look at all this shiny stuff over here. I want that. I want this. I want that. I want this. And you're just like you're making yourself like this Swiss Army knife. It's got that knows a million different things, but you probably only, you know, when you get to purple, you're sort of going, fuck, I know all these things, but you know, what do I do well? And what you're noticing at purple is you're noticing what I do well and saying, well, I don't need all this other stuff. What I need to do is I need to get the stuff that I do well and connect it together to make one knife. You know what I mean? And that's sort of what I found I was doing. Is it's like, I'm going, okay, well, I do this well, and I do end up here all the time. And now I'm noticing that, you know, and I'm sort of like going, okay, I have to create a game around that. That is my game. I've now found my game, and now I need to create the game that goes around that. And that's the journey that you take at purple. And you're trying to do that whilst, again, like I said, that people are, you know, constantly challenging you, because every time you go up a belt, you got that other ranks underneath you with the target on your back. And then, you know, you're trying to like, yeah, exactly, this guy. But yeah, so it's a challenging belt because people are looking at you like, you know, you're somewhat of a higher stature in the ranking system because you've been doing it for so long now. And it's just challenging because mentally in yourself, you're thinking, I should be fucking nailing this. I should be doing so much better by now. I've been doing it for so long. And, you know, it's just, you know, but at the end of the day, you just got to enjoy your journey, enjoy it for what it is, because, you know, that's why you do the sport, right? Don't beat yourself up too hard, because there's always a training partner that's willing to do that for you. So
I think Rodney found purple belt hardest because he hadn't started training with me yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He had no direction yet.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't. I really did. I didn't have direction. I knew what I wanted to do and I knew what I did well, but I just really didn't have a reason to develop that into something that I could apply to majority of the people. You know, I just didn't really. I knew my game. I just didn't understand what I was going to do with it at that stage, or how it was going to, you know, create, you know, my journey moving forwards to be able to take it to brown. So yeah.
Tell me about some injuries, Rodney. Have you had some bad injuries over the years?
Yeah, I think we all got to get one or two. Luckily, I've not had anything that's been severe enough to, you know, take me off the map for a significant amount of time. I've sort of been able to train through most of my injuries because I try to train safe regardless, you know, of what's going on in the gym and the training partner that I'm with. So, you know, I always like try to have that philosophy of like, you know, look after yourself, look after your training partner, tap early and train the next day rather than go hard, you know, prove that you're the best and potentially end up with an injury and then be off the mats for 6 weeks, right? So, you know, I did my AC, had a super like inflamed AC from like getting like thrown over someone's back from like a judo throw on, you know, when I was attacking a turtle. Learned the valuable lesson then not to put my weight forwards. You know, like the big guy just sort of threw me straight in. He just dumped me on my shoulder, and it was like AC flamed up. I've had, you know, foot injuries from leg locks, especially recent. You know, I've had my knee popped because I, you know, was unwilling to give up a potential position because I didn't feel threatened, and yeah, and it's just sort of like. There's just been 1 or 2 times where I've sort of taken something for granted and potentially ended up with an injury, but luckily none of them have like put me into surgery. I just had to nurse them, take time off the mats and things like that, and you know, and try and train through them, which is always great. Like if you get an injury and you can train through it, it's really good for your game because, you know, I think you're aware of this too, that you can you just learn to sort of do something different or use a different part of your body. Yeah. What are you gonna say?
I got a question.
All right,
go. When did you like sort of look at yourself and go like, oh, I'm pretty good. Like I sort of know. I sort of know what I'm doing. Why are you guys laughing? That's a real question.
Never.
No, fuck it. No, don't
No,
even
no.
answer.
It's a common thing, man. Here, I'll rephrase it for you. Did you feel that you didn't deserve your belts at any time, at any belt?
Every belt I got,
Yeah.
every belt you get for the first, like, you grow into every belt, right? So every belt I got, it's like for that first, like, I'd say 3 months, you are just trying to prove to yourself that you are rolling at that level or that you have that ability, because you never feel like you got it when, even when you think you're ready for it and you're like, oh, give me it, I deserve it. When you get it, it's like, oh shit, now I've got it. You know what I mean? Like, it's sort of like you're asking for something, that you're not really ready for.
It's a funny
Because when you
feeling.
get it, if you don't feel like that, then you're not progressing, right? Because if you just like, yeah, I've nailed it, like that's what I get, well then you're not progressing, right?
Yeah.
It's every belt I've ever gotten, I've felt like I wasn't ready for it. I think that I needed to grow more. I think that it challenges me to say, okay, man, I got to start doing something. And of recent, you saw like that's what's happened with me. Like the minute, that I got my black, it's like, all right, that's it. I'm going to get better at this now, because you've got to be like, okay, I've got to start getting better, because I don't want to feel like I'm not representing the belt that I've got ever.
Yeah, it's tough. Heavy bears the crown.
Yeah, for sure. And as it gets heavier, it's not easier. It's just, it's fucking hell. And that's why I'm like, enjoy your journey. Yeah, enjoy your journey while you can, because as it gets heavier, it's challenging.
Well, I'll phrase it this way. Like, I still feel like a fish out of water. Like, I still like, am I doing jiu-jitsu or am I just like rolling or wrestling on the ground?
Yeah, well, that's to be expected at this point in your journey, though, right? Like nobody would have expected, because that's, to me, that's the representation of the white belt, is learning what jiu-jitsu is and finding to find jiu-jitsu. You haven't found jiu-jitsu yet because you haven't had the ability to train a lot of it yet, for a period of time, to learn all aspects of those positions and things to do. So you're still finding jiu-jitsu. So like I said, that my most fun belt was white belt, because oh man, I was an idiot. I was just jumping around doing dumb shit, thinking that I was gonna just like flip and take backs and stuff. And it's so freeing, because like that's all that was expected of me. I was never expected to do like make a really good decision. I was expected to most likely just get fucking taps, and and I was in a gym with everyone that was a blue belt before I even walked in the door. So it's like at that point you're not expected to be that. So I mean, in your head you want to be good at it, and that's why you do it, and you're coming in every class because you want to get better. But don't be hard on yourself, because at this point in your journey, there is nothing expected of you except to just get in and keep training, because if you give up, that'll be the only thing that stops you from progressing. So
it would just be a memory for us.
Exactly. Remember that guy?
Just show up, do what you're told, and work hard. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Last one, Rodney, quick one. Stupid traditions in jiu-jitsu. What have you seen?
I think that I've over time I've learned stupid traditions is about people saying you can't do this or you can't do that, or from other grappling submission sports. Yeah. So I learned from obviously me being around Selby that catch wrestling and sambo and all this sort of stuff had some input into jiu-jitsu, and that they translated over. And during that period of time, that was when people were just like, no, don't do that. It's not going to work. But yet you look at jiu-jitsu today, and they're doing more sambo leg lock entries and heel hooks than ever, because they've all learned that if it works, right? So I think that if anything, what I've learned from stupid traditions is to not tell anybody not to do something that may potentially work. Because if it works, it works. So if you can take something from judo and bring it over and make it work, awesome. If you can take something from wrestling and bring it into your game and it works, do it, it's a silly tradition to think that you have to stick to the traditional jiu-jitsu only, you know, side control only, and, you know, with that certain arm bar. It doesn't have to be like that. You can do anything, really.
All right, I'll pull you up there, Rod. I think we're going to run out of time, mate.
I'll go all night.
I know. We'll have to do another one. This is good. All right, guys. Thanks for your time. We'll do solo drills on Thursday. And then Saturday, we're going to try and do like a body weight workout that you can follow along. We'll see how we go. Awesome. Thanks again, Rodney.